What's up guys, Sean here, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys how to reach a new higher level of sharpness beyond anything that you have experienced before. I'm going to be demonstrating using my KANSEPT sharpening system and the Demco 8020.5. This is in AUS 10A blade steel, and I'm going to be going over some essential tips, some techniques that I've found have, really helped me get sharper results. Up and down like that, shifting in the clamp this way, or shifting in the clamp up and down like that, the clamp rocking like that. All those things can cause variations in the angle up to 1 degree, and in some instances even more. And then sharpening with too much pressure can also cause that to happen. Another thing that I do, because I don't like any extra unnecessary flex or movement or shifting in the clamp, I run my rear spring right here pretty tight. So that is going to be solid. I'm basically turning this into a TS Prof level solidness and precision. So everything is completely solid, no flex, no give. My angle adjustment here, this is tightened down. My guide rod swivel ball right here, this has recently been replaced because I noticed it was getting some play in it, and that, it throws things off. Very, very little, to most people, they probably would never, the difference wouldn't matter. But when you're trying to break world records and stuff like I'm trying to do over here, you gotta have everything dialed in, every aspect of it. So I'm gonna go over all of those aspects that you guys need to be dialing in. So when I do, this is very important to note that while I do have this spring tension tying down very tight, you know, almost all the way, I do not flip it without relieving that tension. So I always, every time I go to flip, it's become muscle memory. I take this finger and I push in on the back right here and relieve that pressure and flip it. Relieve the pressure, flip it. Relieve the pressure, flip it. Relieve the pressure, flip it. And that's going to keep you from wearing out those detent balls and maintaining the ability to keep this thing nice and locked up solid. All those variations, even when they are less than a degree or half a degree, 0.1 of a degree, it still can cause inconsistencies that, you know, reduce potential sharpness. So you can get inconsistencies in the sharpness that you get at the tip versus the belly versus the heel. You know, that's why a lot of times when you do best test results, you'll get different, you know, readings. You'll have variations across the entire edge. Now, if all the variations are pretty close together and it's, you know, extremely sharp from tip to heel, then you don't have anything to worry about. But it's still things to pay attention to if you are aiming to create the best edge that you possibly can. Now, starting off with your first stone, you're going to be forming the profile of your new edge. So before you just start grinding away, there's a few things that you need to check for that can save you a lot of time and headaches in the long run. So number one is the nice tight secure clamp. Like I was saying, you're going to mark your edge with a Sharpie. You're going to add your zip tie to protect the plunge grind if necessary, or you're going to add your tape or whatever precautionary measures that you want to take. You're going to be doing all of that from the start. I like to also mark out my clamp location, and if it's a knife that has thumb studs, I like to also mark the thumb studs so I can see if I'm accidentally hitting the thumb stud. You know, mainly because I like to lay my edges back. I like sharpening at the lower angles, and I like that nice slicey, you know, super satisfying cutting performance. So when you are reducing your angle a lot lower, then you start running the chance of hitting your thumb stud because you're sharpening it at an angle a good bit below what the factory, you know, would have ever sharpened it at. I like to do my edges a certain way. I like them to slice and perform, and I also like to prevent you know, little goof ups before they happen as much as possible. You know, when you are sharpening hundreds of knives, you know, from time to time, you are going to make mistakes. You're only human. There's mistakes that I make, you know, most of them can be recovered from. There's some that I notice that no one else would ever notice. But if it's a customer's knife, then I still feel the obligation to let them know. You know, there's a lot of things that go into it, but, you know, some people just don't care. They're not perfectionists. This video is for those of you who are really trying to get, you know, to that perfection level. The next thing you want to do is lightly test to see if your clamp location is where you would like it. Originally, I had this clamped in the center of the blade, parallel with the spine. The clamp was parallel with the spine, and that was giving me 17 degrees per side across the entire edge. However, due to the difference in the thickness behind the edge, especially when you get towards the tip here, because the tip comes up to the spine. The spine is obviously much thicker than your thickness behind the edges at the belly or the heel. So you're going to get a much bigger edge bevel, even if the angle is exactly the same as right here. So if you want an even looking edge bevel in a situation like this, you're going to need to clamp it in a way to make the angle a degree higher at the tip. 1 degree higher at the tip than it is at the heel. That's going to give you a nice even edge bevel. So for example, I was aiming for 17 degrees per side, but with my new location at 17 degrees per side up until about this point, and then it raises up until the very tip where it's about 18 degrees per side. And that adjustment is what gives me a nice even looking edge bevel. That's something that you want to get figured out and decide on before you go, hog wild, balls to the wall into the process. So by edge test, I mean, usually you're going to be doing this with a much finer stone, not the Veneve F80. But because I already did this, I'm just going to be showing you. Oh yeah. Another thing before you start is you want to set your stopper so you cannot ride up onto the face of the blade. So that's something you really want to avoid. You can get a little spring-loaded stopper like I have right here. I would highly recommend it. That's what it looks like. And you can adjust it just by twisting that little dial. Just spin it down tight. It's not going to be locked completely, to where you absolutely can't move it, but it holds it enough. It holds it plenty enough. That's all you needed to do. You're just preventing your stone from riding up onto the face of the blade. So you have that set at a safe distance. And I'm going to be starting at the heel. And very lightly, I'm going to just do a sweeping stroke towards the tip with little to no pressure. I'm holding it like this, allowing the stone to, kind of turn with the edge, okay? So you don't want to be too stiff on it and forcing the stone to stay at any certain, you don't want to keep all the pressure to the front the whole time, or all the pressure to the rear, or all the pressure dead center. You want to allow this stone to kind of pivot. That is the whole point of this being on a guide rod that can kind of pivot like this. That is going to give you the nicest blade profile possible. And then when I get towards the tip right here, I always put my finger there to prevent the stone from rolling off the tip and rounding your tip. So go back to the heel. I'm just ensuring that it's removing the Sharpie where I want it to and giving me results that I'm going to be happy with. So that looks good for this side. Let's go ahead and flip it over. Okay guys, so once you have your profile all figured out, you're still on your first stone. The last step on your first stone is deburring. You want to make sure that your stone is clean. I went ahead and sprayed it with some 91% alcohol and then wiped it with a paper towel, clean off some of the steel particles, Sharpie residue, all that good stuff. The next thing you want to do, I use a little misting spray bottle and I just mist it with water. This is going to reduce the friction when this rough coarse stone is sliding across your edge. And when you reduce that friction and resistance, it's going to allow you to be able to push this stone across the edge using less pressure. And we are only going to do, well, we're going to do mostly edge leading passes, but this first pass right here, I'm going to do a little bit of edge leading and edge trailing. Very gentle, letting the stone follow the blade profile that I set. All right. Go ahead and flip her over. Remember, we are working on reducing the burr, so we do not want to be building the burr up. The profiling is done, so we don't need to be making any extra strokes. If you still need to tweak your profile, then, do that. But, don't really worry about this step until you're at the point that you are happy with the profile. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting time, trying to tweak it with your other stones throughout your progression. And, it's just not necessary. Get the profile dialed, and then take care of your deburring. All right. Bada bing, bada boom. I still feel the burr. It's definitely there, but it's not that big. So should be able to get it pretty reduced after this pass. But yeah, another thing that I found is giving me sharper results and better cutting performance is keeping these keeping the scratch pattern mostly vertical, in relevance to the, or is keeping your scratch pattern mostly vertical in relation to the spine, and that is going to allow you to maintain the most bite. So in order to keep your scratch pattern mostly vertical, you're going to be doing much less scrubbing strokes. Scrubbing strokes will give you more of a diagonal pattern, and I found that just greatly reduces your bite. And when I use the term bite, I'm referring to how easily the edge initiates the cut into a material. So if you have to saw like this to get your knife to initiate the cut into a given material, that's a sign that you have little bite in the edge. And it won't necessarily prevent the blade from cutting, but it can definitely be annoying and much less satisfying to have that extra resistance when you're trying to cut something. So guys, your key to getting a sharper edge is really just to do all the basic fundamentals really well. So if you've already developed some bad habits, it's going to be harder to overcome, but it's definitely very possible. You just need to take your time and stay conscious of your every move. And you might even have to pick one or two things to really focus on at a time. but your ultimate goal is to master all of them. And another big thing to remember is you're only going to improve if you are frequently sharpening and applying these things. If you are sharpening frequently and you are consciously making an effort to do everything to the best of your abilities, then, you know, it's not going to take long at all for some of these things to become muscle memory and basically replace those bad habits. Go ahead, spray my stone again. One thing that I've said before that is a really good practice is to treat your first stone as if it's your only stone. That's how serious you need to take the precision of the reprofiling, and even as far as, you know, the seriousness of your deburring, because the sharper and more precise you get your edge with the first stone, the sharper and more precise your edge is going to be with your final stone. Your first stone is your foundation. You know, you can get as good as you want with all the other steps of the progression and finishing work and so forth, but if you don't have a strong foundation and a very, very sharp, nasty edge to start off with, then you are only ever going to get so sharp. Once you have a good grasp on the fundamentals, the next most essential step is deburring. Now, some people will say that deburring is everything when it comes to getting a great edge, and they aren't lying. However, it's really just one component. You know, now deburring can completely make or break an edge when it comes to sharpness, but it won't matter unless you are starting with a great foundation and execute all the prior steps very well. And like I'm showing you guys here, deburring doesn't necessarily begin with your last stone. Ideally, once you have the profile set, you have completely apexed the edge, and the profile is situated to your liking, you should be making an effort to reduce the burr throughout the rest of your progressions. So, you know, if you end up needing to correct a discrepancy in your edge bevel, profile, or scratch pattern after you have made it past this point, it's not the end of the world, and raising the burr is, you know, it may be inevitable, but as a rule of thumb, you always want to try to minimize the burr with every stone. So now that I have, you know, profiled, and I am now working on basically deburring with this first stone, I'm going to have very, very little burr to fight with when it comes to deburring with my final stone, which is only 3 stones away, or 2 stones away, because I only use the F80, I use the F150, F240, and F400 is my finishing stone. So that's how I'm able to essentially get, you know, mere edges, semi-polished edges with only 3 or 4 stones. I wish I had an electronic microscope so I could show you guys the precision in both the scratch pattern and at the apex and all that stuff. Some more water. see. Oh yeah, that edge is freaking nasty right now already. Now, I'm going to be moving on to the next stone now. From the Veneve F80, my next stone is the Veneve F100. That's what I meant. F100, not F150. F100. So it's a different thickness. Okay. You have about a millimeter difference in thickness. Okay, so I do not have a stone thickness compensator, but here's a general rule. If the stone that you're about to use is thicker than your initial stone by, say, 1 millimeter, you're gonna want to raise your angle adjustment on the KME right here. You're going to want to raise this about 1 degree. Now you want to mark it with a Sharpie where it's at right now, where you reprofiled with your original stone. You can even check your angle with your angle cube. Take note of that to verify your adjustment with your thicker stone. And you know, it should be saying the same thing after you raise this up about 1 degree. And you're also going to want to mark the edge with a Sharpie to verify that as well. Now, if I initially profiled it with a thicker stone and I was moving to a thinner stone, it would be the opposite. I'm going to want to adjust this by lowering it down 1 degree instead of raising it up 1 degree. So that's how we adjust for that. And then having the original location clamped is just kind of a safety measure or reference, so you can always get back to it if you need to and not have to worry about you know, losing track of where it was. So here I just raised it 1 degree. Going to mark the edge to check and make sure that I am where I need to be. Go ahead, spray this stone with some water. Okay. Very lightly. Okay, guys. Perfecto. It was exactly 1 degree higher on the angle adjustment was the exact difference that I needed. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, guys. Now you see that little bit of Sharpie there? Blech. That little bit of Sharpie there right at the tip? Don't worry about that right away. Okay? As long as you're hitting it at the apex and you are flipping the burr over to the other side, that's all that matters. You do not want to focus too much on chasing that little bit of Sharpie at the tip, or you're going to end up messing your tip up and having to, you're going to be working backwards. So just trust me. I'm really OCD and I've done this a million times. I've made the same mistake over and over again a million times, and I'm not one to really repeat the same mistake a lot. But that's one that, it's hard for me to fight the urge to just get that little extra little smear of Sharpie at the tip, but it is not worth it. Trust me, you will end up, messing up the tip and having to fix that profile all over again. So definitely not worth it. Go ahead and mark this again. This time we're going to be doing edge leading and edge trailing. So I'm going in and out using really no pressure besides the stone. Remember, I want to keep that scratch pattern pretty much as vertical as possible. And when I get to the tip, I'm putting my finger out past the tip so I cannot accidentally roll off the tip. I'm coming out past the tip as little as possible. Maybe a quarter of the stone out past the tip. That is all. I'm just going to do an edge leading pass. Flip it, do the same thing, edge leading only. Spray this stone with water. Go real light. All right, the burr is getting so small, I can barely feel it now. So damn. Yeah, that's super sharp. It's pretty much deburred. And I just finished with the F100. This is the Cerberus Dog Series stone. So I can flip it over. And the other side is F240. So we're now moving on to F240. Go ahead and sprayer. Oh yeah, now the feedback is getting really good. I mean, guys, that is smooth as butter because, like I said, it's pretty much completely deburred at this point. Look how clean that edge is at f240. Well, not only is it at f240, but that is after just a couple strokes with the f240. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple more passes with the f240, and then I'm going to move on to the f400 and do the same exact thing. So I'm going to kind of go through that without talking and kind of speed this up. And then of course I have some notes, but when it comes to deburring, at the end of each stone, you want to knock the burr down. You want to keep the stones or plates, whatever you have, whether it's metallic bonded diamonds to plates, or whether it's resin bonded diamonds into a stone form or whatever. You want to be keeping those clean. You'll have better performance when sharpening and when deburring when your stones are clean. You want to be adding water. That's going to reduce the friction. It reduces the wear on your stones, gives you better feedback, keeps the stones from loading up with steel particles. There's so many benefits to adding a little bit of water. And then you're going to be making mostly all edge leading passes. Keep marking the edge so you can see exactly what's happening. And you're going to want to continuously reduce the amount of strokes and the pressure as you continue to flip. I don't have a specific routine or a countdown. I go off of, feeling the edge, visual inspection, inspecting it by feel and all that stuff, and kind of my intuition to tell me what needs to be done, as well as using the Sharpie and so forth. But if you watch what I just did as I was going through that process, I might do 2 or 3 passes on one side and then 1 pass on the other, or 2 passes and then 1 pass and then 1 pass and then 2 passes. I just do whatever I feel it needs, but ultimately I end up making pretty much 1 pass per side, and I'm reducing pressure as I'm flipping that burr back from side to side as it's, getting knocked down more and more. I go lighter and lighter on the pressure. And another thing that you want to pay attention to when you're deburring is you want to avoid doing too much of a scrubbing motion. You want to still maintain that mostly vertical scratch pattern, because that's going to help maintain your bite and give you a better performing and longer performing, sharper edge when everything's said and done. Alright guys, so now I'm going to be moving on to the F400. I'm just going to hold this up next to this stone and double check. Make sure it's the same thickness, which it is. And you can see right there, the yellow is F400. So that's the side that we are using. Center it up, lock it down. Get her wet. And let's do it. Freaking beautiful. Holy moly. Let me wipe this off and let you guys see this real quick. First pass with the F400. Oh yeah. Freaking outstanding. All right, guys, that is looking beautiful. Go ahead, make a pass. Oh yeah. Okay guys, that is sharp. Alright guys, so now we are at our final and most important step, that is stropping. And because, as you saw with my sharpening techniques and how cleanly I keep the scratch pattern, this edge is going to basically look like it's mirror polished after just a couple passes on basswood with 1 micron gunny juice. Now this is my go-to, but I have lots of options here. I have 3 paddle strops, 2 of which were sent to me courtesy of River's Edge Cutlery. They are an awesome knife dealer, awesome guys over there. They do really cool custom work, so definitely check them out. But I have kangaroo leather right here with 6 micron gunny juice, 9 micron gunny juice, 3 micron gunny juice. I have cowhide leather with some stropping paste, which is essentially very similar to the standard green stropping compound. I only loaded up this half of the strop because I didn't really want to use this on the strop, but it was made by the same company that makes these strops, and I was, Mike Kent sent these to me for me to evaluate and kind of give him my thoughts and opinions on if these are good strops or not. And that was one of the things that was included with it. So I thought it would really, only be right for me to give it a try. But not a big fan of the stropping paste. I will say it worked better than I expected, but it is by no means on par with gunny juice. There's really nothing that I found that competes with the gunny juice. Then on the back side here, we have that kind of rough, fuzzy stuff. I'm not a big fan of that either. Then this one right here, this was my first decent strop. This is a Beaver Craft paddle strop. I believe this is linked in the description of most of my videos. You can get this at Amazon, and the strop works, really good. You can just use the standard green compound and it works absolutely fine. But I have come to find that I get my sharpest edges when I strop on basswood. So you can get basswood in all kinds of configurations. You can get it in long, like a 30-inch or 28 or 24 or 32-inch long, 1-inch wide, 1/4-inch thick, which I really like this. Kind of a little bit thicker than a paint stir, probably the thickness of 2 or 3 paint stirs actually, but you want to get at least 1/4-inch thick. It might be a better idea, or might be a good idea to get whatever the thickest basswood they have is. It's going to give you more, it's going to make the surface more sturdy. It's going to last longer, hold up longer. But I really like the 1-inch wide. And then this I also really like. So you can see this is a little bit thicker. I have some other setups on here. 9 micron, 12 micron. Don't really use that often at all. And then instead of cutting, this is what one of these are, basically the same length that all of these come in. And then I end up just cutting them down. But instead of cutting it down, this is one that I just keep here. So I just drew lines to mark off sections. And as you can see, the different numbers are different micron ratings. So all kinds of stuff. Oh, and then I have this. I really like this. This is regular cow leather. Have it loaded up with 1 micron gunny juice. But for this bad boy, we're going to stick to my go-to. And the feedback that you get from basswood is very exact. Doesn't really leave anything to question or guess whether you are holding it at the right angle or not, because especially when you have your edge laid back like I do right here at 17 degrees per side, you have a nice wide bevel that is a perfect V grind, so it's perfectly flat, and it's a large contact patch that you're going to have against the basswood, which is completely flat. And you know, when you start to feel the resistance, that means that you are pretty much reaching your angle. And then when you're at the exact angle, it should almost feel like it's kind of suctioning to the basswood. Now, it won't do that on just plain basswood without any emulsions. But when you have it loaded with emulsions, you should feel it. It kind of feels like you're sliding two pieces of glass that are perfectly flat against each other. And if you feel any type of scratching or scraping sensation whatsoever, that means you are not at the right angle. Okay, it should feel very, very smooth. So you can go from tip to heel like I did there, or you can start at the heel and work towards the hip, and work towards the tip. And, you know, I used to do a lot of kind of scrubbing strokes when sharpening, and I used to strop in all different directions and stuff. And that was great for, you know, the polished edges and getting beautiful mirrors. But as far as getting the absolute sharpest edge and also having it look good, you're going to want to kind of stick with stay in parallel with your scratch pattern. And that is going to help you maintain the most bite possible, you know, the most aggression in the edge possible. So that's where a lot of people get things confused with my edges. They see my edges and they think, oh, you know, it's a mere polished edge. It can't be that sharp, or it can't be good for everyday use, or it's not going to stay sharp for long, or it won't have good bite. And that is where they are wrong, because one of the objectives is to, you're not trying to really polish anything, and you're certainly not trying to polish away the teeth at the apex. Okay, you don't want the apex to ever be dragging across the wood or leather, because that's going to round the apex. What we are doing right now is refining the apex and further removing any type of micro burr that might be left over. And all that means is we are making the apex even thinner. All right, we're not taking away the bite from the apex or the teeth from the apex. We are simply making the apex that much thinner, which equals higher sharpness. And you want to make sure that you are not riding up onto the apex and polishing away any of the teeth at the apex, because that is what gives you your bite and gives you that ease of initiating your cut. So the ease of initiating the cut, the ease of the blade going into whatever material you are cutting without having to saw at it, just, you know, on contact, it is going into it. That is due to the edge having bite, which it needs those micro serrations, that those teeth at the very apex. You know, what goes on with the edge bevel, the edge bevel can get polished as much as you want, you know, and it's still not going to affect the apex if you do it very precisely and you know what you're doing. And not just know what you're doing, but, you know, takes practice, takes understanding, takes muscle memory, all that kind of stuff. You know, I didn't just accidentally stumble into discovering any of these things. You know, this is all stuff that I've come to find through tons of trial and error. You know, thousands of hours sharpening and stropping and just trying to figure out what works good for me. Reason I do all this stuff slowly is so I can maintain the highest precision, and I am constantly feeling the feedback of what's going on. That's why don't have it all up in my face like this. I don't need to look at it, you know, closely. I can feel exactly what's going on, and anytime I stop, I am adjusting the angle and getting back on my angle. If I feel that it's not at the correct angle, I'm not going to continue to pull it across the strap, because that might, you know, you can end up polishing away those teeth at the apex, or rounding the apex, or doing, you know, any of the things that you don't want to happen. Wipe this off with a rag. And show you guys how we are looking just off of 1 micron. See that? Night and day difference. So that strap I was using, this one was not giving me good feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and put some fresh gunny juice on this one and see if it feels a little bit better. So you just want to squirt a couple drops on there. The clean finger. You don't want to mix different grit ratings. So definitely don't use the same finger to spread out 2 different grit ratings. You can go from lower to higher, but you cannot go from higher to lower, or you will definitely cross-contaminate. So fresh emulsion on there. This is polycrystalline diamond emulsion. So it is very effective. And yeah, we'll let this dry for a couple of minutes and then test her out. Yeah, say hi. Say hi. Take that out. You don't need that. Say, my daddy has cool knives. Say. Say, daddy has cool knives.
Go inside.
Okay. Say, daddy has cool knives. Oh, you're so pretty. You're so pretty.
Come here.
Okay, I come. Where are you taking me? Where are we going?
Room.
Oh, you want to show them your room? All right, hold on. Let me fix my camera. There you go. What do you want to show? Okay. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed this one. Hope it was helpful. Let me know if you guys utilize these tips and let me know what kind of results you get. Let me know if it helped you improve your sharpening. So, as always, thank you for watching. I love you guys. Jesus loves you. Stay tuned, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.